appreciate this opportunity to testify. Providing for the continuity of Congress has been a special cause for my colleague, Mr. Baird, and I have shared that with him, just as we shared the experience together on the steps of the Capitol on September 11th, 2001. It was clear on that day when we stood and had seen the mayhem that had gone down in New York and this attack on the Pentagon, it was clear that day what could have happened to this branch of government on that day. Brian and I each have our own proposals of how to deal with that threat, because that threat is still there, and the current status quo does not work. The House Joint Resolution 52 and 53, respectively, Mr. Baird's and my own, addresses the continuity of Congress in case of a man-made or a natural catastrophe. However, we both co-sponsored each other's proposals in the belief that either of these proposals are so much better than the current status quo, in which we are totally vulnerable immediately after an attack, and that has not escaped those terrorists and those enemies of our country. They know that if they would bring down some attack on this Congress that would incapacitate or kill a number of us, that for a large length of time, whether it's 25 days or 45 days or 100 days, we would have no legislative branch of government. And as my colleague has said, having someone here is certainly, and having a responsible makeup is certainly better than not having anybody here except maybe one or two people claiming to have the powers of the Congress. I'd like to address specifically my proposal, which is House Joint Resolution 53, which not only will allow Congress to continue operations in the face of a massive tragedy, but will also make Congress a little bit more democratic in the small d sense of the word, because we do face situations where there are vacancies every year. Today in the Senate, we have seen Massachusetts and West Virginia lose half of their representation for weeks and months at a time because of their senators' health problems. And not long ago in South Dakota, it lost its benefit of half its Senate delegation for almost a year because our Constitution has no provision for dealing with a long-term disability if a senator declines to resign his seat. We've seen major controversies regarding the filling of Senate vacancies in Illinois and New York because the Constitution in its current form provides only for gubernatorial appointments as the only alternative to a lengthy vacancy and then of course it's followed by a expensive statewide election in states like California and New York. Until last Thursday in my home state of California, we had 2 fewer representatives than we were entitled to, and still have 1 fewer, because President Obama saw our delegation as a source of talent for his administration. Under our Constitution, there is no alternative provided to a lengthy vacancy for a lack of representation, whether it's caused by a terrorist attack or whether it's caused by sickness or by a member of Congress being appointed to another position. H.R. Joint Resolution 53 would solve all of these constitutional problems by providing that each person who is elected to the House of Representatives or the Senate must be elected in combination with an alternate. This provision is, of course, modeled on how we currently elect the President of the United States and the Vice President, ensuring that if any tragedy befalls the President, that that we will have an alternate right there. You know, we've had these tragedies in the past, and the Vice President has stepped forward. We should have that same sort of protection for members of the House and Senate, so that our bodies will not become inoperable after a terrorist attack or after some kind of major accident. If an airplane goes down, which has a large number of members in it, it could change the majority in our House for a lengthy period of time. That's not what democracy is all about, leaving us vulnerable to that type of situation. So I would just suggest that having an alternate for a House and Senate member would provide which is Mr. Sensenbrenner's main concern, for an elected representative just always to be here in case of an emergency, just as an elected vice president, and a vice president elected just like the president. So that takes care of that democratic argument, but doesn't leave us vulnerable for months and weeks or months at a time after some terrorist attack or some tragedy. So I would ask my colleagues to take this as a very real challenge. We are vulnerable. This country, as we speak, is vulnerable to terrorists, and we're also vulnerable to accidents. Let's correct the situation and make sure that we can always have a Senate, always have a House of Representatives, always have a Congress that can function even though there's been a terrorist attack or some major tragedy that has existed. I think that Mr. Baird's proposal and my own proposal will go a long way to making this country less vulnerable as it stands right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's customary in this committee that we don't ask